died.
Ooh.
Hawk-Tuah girl is sparking pregnancy rumors after candid photos went viral.
Oh, my bad.
Breaking news. The Hawk-Tuah girl is not missing. She's pregnant.
Oh my god. Ooh.
What's going on with that Hawk-Tuah chick? She going to jail?
Anywho, do I get a phone call?
The Hawk-Tuah girl. No one knows finance quite like Miss Tua.
Get your ass up. We got stuff to do.
So obviously she's having her jollies with the online rumors. I found it hilarious that her Instagram bio still says influence for good, but either way she has now made her official return to podcasting, featuring none other than KSI.
Wow, Hawk-Tuah hoodie, yes.
There you go.
Wow.
But when we look deeper than the surface, we can actually find an attempted return that was scrapped before it ever even went public. A leaked episode of Talk Tua More Rare Than the Ancient Sea Scrolls, where FaZe Banks and his two crypto nerds came on around 2 months ago to essentially try and save this woman while also softly calling out her team of incompetent fools.
Millions of people are going to watch this. Everybody's kind of waiting to hear what you say. Everyone's kind of waiting to see how this plays out. And 99% of these people don't know shit about crypto. Just
And
like
I'm
you.
one of them.
Just like you, exactly.
I'm one of them.
Exactly. And the ongoing joke on CT right now is like, if she just did this 2 days after Trump, she'd be okay.
Exactly.
Which isn't necessarily true because of the way it was done. And that's kind of the whole point, right? There's a right and a wrong way to do this.
So it's clear to me that her plan here was to essentially claim ignorance, to say that she is just a poor little girl who was scammed just as much as her fans, something I personally find pathetic but completely on par for a generation of people who never take accountability for their actions. Her name, likeness, and brand were plastered all over this project. She was pretty much the sole person to promote it.
Oh yeah, if I launch a meme coin, can I give you some tokens?
Yeah, I'll give you my wallet.
And it was clear from the very start that it would never have any actual community, much less any form of utility.
Okay.
But are you sure you're gonna launch? I don't know. I'm not as big a fan about meme coins. I love crypto, but you can make some money from it. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
I'm very new to it, and I'm still learning what it is.
A few moments later.
My Hawk meme coin is live! I want to start by saying thank you to all my true fans and all the people that actually watch my stuff and they keep up with me. We're trying to sort out all the pieces and stuff to like get all this figured out and make everything right. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
No, don't cry. Don't cry. You're adorable.
Just give us a minute.
Okay. It's going to be okay. It's mostly important that your network and the people that you trust to walk into this market are exactly that, people that you can trust.
I think that's where I messed up.
For sure, for sure.
Now, to be clear, the people who bought into this are equally, if not much more stupid than Hawk-Tuah herself. But for her to have the audacity to do anything but apologize with maybe a ukulele, and instead to just point her finger and blame other people, to me is insane. But hey, she still had time to squeeze in a quick sponsor segment.
Money, oh money, how I love thee.
All right, you guys, I only got one sponsor left because there's some real ones and they've stuck with me since every bit of this started. Game Time believes in me, y'all, and I believe in them.
Game Time's more loyal than most of y'all's mans out here. This podcast ain't going nowhere, and neither are them Game Time deals.
So Banks brings his friends who are apparently crypto experts, and they try and get an explanation from her and her lawyer. Hawk claims that she was brought into this opportunity by someone who over-exaggerated their qualifications, and that pretty much everything in the promotion of this coin was just scripted stuff that she was told and paid to say.
CoffeeZilla got on there. That scary guy, let me tell you, don't ever want to have a conversation with him. Well, see, that's how it got brought to me. It was supposed to be done the right way. Like, it was going to be good. Like, half the money, it was supposed to go, like, into my charity. That's really why I agreed to do it. Just for the simple fact, putting money into that. It was a way to, like, get all my community gathered up together. It was just, I don't know. It was brought to me in, like, a positive way. Like, it was going to be something good and long-term, but it didn't go that route at all.
Next, the lawyer comes in and admits that Hawk-Tuah received $125,000 up front for using her name and likeness on this project, and that she was supposed to receive another $200,000 after it was officially launched. And on top of that, he claims that she was supposed to retain 5% of the overall tokens that would only pay out partially after 1 year's time, and then periodically throughout the next 3 years.
It was very publicly set up like wrong.
But having like a pre-sale, posting the wallet address beforehand, a sniper made $1 million right when it went live. These were kind of just like really bad practices for like an organic meme coin.
There was a 17% allocation. Most of the pre-sale investors, my understanding, Let's get to it. Let's start off with the U.S. and El Salvador doubling down on mistakenly deported man despite court order. We're obviously going to be talking about that. It's a pretty significant deal. It is a turning point for the United States in a sea of awful things that the Trump administration has done. We're back at it again. We're back at it again in this field where the Trump administration is actively defying the Supreme Court's unanimous decision on the facilitation of returning the wrongfully deported man from Maryland back to the United States of America. As you guys know, as I've talked about over and over again over the past week and a half, there is this is a truly horrifying situation. It's unconscionable, it's immoral, and it is also unconstitutional. They're kidnapping people, they're disappearing people into El Salvador, and it's very obvious that this is the modus operandi. They're not going to change it. This is one day after the highly anticipated Oval Office meeting where the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, said he would not return a wrongly deported Maryland man being held in his country in the CCOT anti-terror facilities. The federal judge who ordered his return will hear from the Trump administration's attorneys at a court hearing on this wonderful afternoon. Okay, that's going to be happening in a couple hours. We're, of course, talking about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who is now entering his second month in the El Salvador mega prison after he was deported there on March 15th, even though there was a 2019 court order that barred his deportation to that country. That means that in an immigration court, Kilmar Abrego Garcia was found to, one, not be a member of any gang whatsoever, but more importantly than that, specifically not deportable to the country of El Salvador, given that he was not only not a gang member, not a member of MS-13 at all, but also beyond that, he had actually given information up on a competing Salvadoran gang, which put his life in the crosshairs if he were to ever return to El Salvador. This is precisely how he got a 2019 court order for a withdrawal of removal. A withdrawal of removal has a higher standard to clear than a pure asylum application. He had sufficiently proven in court that he was endangered. He had delivered information on a Salvadoran gang in the past as well, which put his life in harm's way if he were to ever return to El Salvador. Do you understand? Trump administration officials, on the other hand, claim falsely that Abrego Garcia, who escaped political violence in El Salvador in 2011, is a member of the criminal gang MS-13, and yet they have provided zero evidence. A withhold of removal. Did I say withdrawal? God damn it. I mess this up every time. A withholding of removal. Unfortunately, withholding is a final order of removal that is withheld, but the government can exercise that final order at their discretion. That is also false. You are wrong. The federal government could technically remove the withholding order, okay? They could, but there's a process to do that. The Trump administration did not do that. In that court process, you have to go through the details. You have to go through what this person has done, go through their background, and detail out exactly why the previous court order was wrong. They did not process this application at all. There was no due process whatsoever. And to take it one step further, a federal government immigration attorney unironically admitted that they had fucked up. This is why we are having this conversation right now, because when you look at all of the data that civil rights groups and immigration advocacy groups have compiled at this point, 90% of all of the people that have been deported to CCOT right now in El Salvador have no crimes, no criminal background whatsoever. 90%. The only reason why we are talking about this Maryland man is because the federal government admitted that they had engaged in this wrongdoing, specifically because he had the background. He had the previous court order. And yes, Aaron Reichlin Melnick, who I rely on quite a bit, senior fellow at IMM Council, has put together a wonderful presentation of the timeline of Abrego Garcia's gang allegations and what the facts are and what the fictitious nature of the claims are. So let's talk about the actual truth. Let's talk about the background of Abrego Garcia. This is Aaron Reichlin Melnick, senior fellow of IMM's Council, presenting the full version of Mr. Abrego's time in the U.S. using court documents to explain the allegations of gang membership and what actually happened in his case. Here it is. Entry and early life. 2011 to 2019, okay? Kilmar Abrego Garcia flees El Salvador to the U.S. at the age of 16 after M18 gang members extort his family and threaten to kill him and rape his sisters if they didn't keep paying. He moves in with his U.S. citizen brother in Maryland and lives there without trouble for years. Then comes, on March 28th, 2019, the PGPD arrest. Kilmar is arrested for loitering outside of a Home Depot while looking for day labor. A Prince George's County Police Department detective grills him about whether he's a gang member. He denies any involvement. 4 hours later, he is transferred to ICE custody without the PGPD charging him for any offense. In April 2019, here are the allegations. At a bond hearing, ICE claims Kilmar is a part of MS-13. They submit one piece of evidence, a gang field interview sheet, a GFIS, filled out by the PGPD detective that claims Kilmar is a part of MS-13. The GFIS says he was wearing Chicago Bulls gear, and to a confidential informant allegedly claimed that Kilmar was a ranking member of the Westerns clique, which is in Long Island, except there's a problem there. Abrego has never been in Long Island. He's never been in New York at all. So this evidence is fabricated. And lo and behold, the local detective, as a matter of fact, that accused Mr. Abrego Garcia of being a member of MS-13 was suspended from the police force and indicted merely weeks later for providing confidential information to a sex worker who he was paying in exchange for sexual acts. That's right, I repeat. The cop who initially attested to Abrego Garcia's alleged MS-13 membership was subsequently suspended and indicted for serious professional misconduct. Remember, we're talking about a cop here, okay? If a police officer, a detective, is fired and suspended and indicted for misconduct, that means they must have gone above and beyond. Do you understand what I am saying? So let's continue. An investigation follows in the summer of 2019. Kilmar's lawyers reach out to the PGPD to investigate these claims. They find out that 1, police did not even file an incident report about his arrest, and 2, the detective that had filled out the GFIS has been suspended for an unknown reason. We now know what the reason is. I just described to you what the reason is. In August 2019, there is an IJ decision. At his final bond hearing, ICE declines to offer any evidence of gang membership other than what is in the GFIS. The IJ denies bond, finding that the GFIS is sufficient proof of membership at the time, despite noting its obvious flaws. Kilmar appeals this decision to the Board of Immigration Appeals. Now remember, the immigration courts are an extension of the federal government. They're an extension of ICE, okay? So you have the process where you can appeal to the Board of Immigration Appeals, but ultimately this is somewhat irrelevant because the erroneous decision making there, it's basically an extension. It's a processor of what the federal government or what the immigration enforcement authorities want to do. That's all they're there to do. They're rubber stamping this stuff, okay? The immigration courts are under the DOJ, part of the executive branch, and not under the judiciary. So just remember that. Having said that, the only reason why I'm mentioning this is because something silly and frivolous like this that is immediately disproven can still cause someone to basically be branded as a member of a criminal organization when there's no evidence whatsoever for it. What is the point of those courts if they just 100% accept everything anyway? It's a way to create paperwork, so to show that there's some sort of process. It's the same principle behind FISA courts. The FISA courts are there to rubber stamp warrantless surveillance and offer them a warrant, right? But it's better that even that exists than not have it exist at all, if that makes sense. Although it is still a rubber stamp protocol, it's still good that even that rubber stamping of the protocol exists as opposed to not existing, because when it doesn't exist at all, then you have no paperwork, you have no way of holding up this process. You have no way of stopping these sorts of things from happening. Now, withholding when the immigration judge rules on October 2019 that Kilmar is ineligible for asylum because he filed the application too late, but the judge does grant withholding of removal, finding that it was more likely than not that he would be subject to persecution if deported to El Salvador. A removal order is issued, but with a restriction that one country he cannot be deported to is El Salvador. Then comes the BIA decision, the Board of Immigration Appeals decision. in December 2019. Kilmar appeals the bond decision to the Board of Immigration Appeals. The appeals board declines to find clear error in the immigration judge's decision to rely on the GIFIS document. However, he is released anyway because he had won a withholding of removal. He returns to normal life from 2019 to 2025. By all reports, Kilmar lives a normal life in Maryland with his U.S. citizen wife, their biological son, and his 2 stepchildren, with the work permit he received as a result of his grant of withholding of removal. He works legally as a sheet metal worker, joins a union, and raises his family in a DC suburb. He doesn't get into any trouble with the law in these years. And then on March 2025, he gets sent to CCOT. On March 12, 2025, ICE and HSI agents arrest Kilmar in his car in front of his son. 3 days later, he's transferred to Texas, where, thanks to an admitted administrative error, he is put on a plane to El Salvador and sent to CCOT. So this is just a person that is married, that has immediate family members in the United States of America, that was falsely smeared as an MS-13 gang member. And every step of that process, there was enough evidence to suggest that not only was he not an MS-13 gang member, that he was directly at threat by MS-13 gang members if they were to send him back to El Salvador. If they were to send him back to El Salvador, that MS-13, he's so not MS-13 that they would kill him. That is what the courts have found. And yet, every single person still that, on the one hand, admit that they falsely deported him, are simultaneously claiming that he is an MS-13 gang member, and also that it's good that he is in El Salvador, and there's no way to bring him back. In a normal process, in a just world, Obrego Garcia enters the United States fleeing El Salvador because of fleeing the gang violence in El Salvador, and expeditiously gets an asylum claim that is granted to him. Clearly, if there is a withholding of removal that a court gave him, that literally means that there is enough here, or more than an asylum application, as a matter of fact, more than just a simple asylum application. This means that there is additional evidence that he's presented as to why he cannot be deported to El Salvador, and that a judge oversaw this evidence and said, yes, there is enough evidence here for you not to be deported specifically to El Salvador. It is a higher standard to clear than an asylum application. It is shocking. I guess it's not really unexpected that the administration would be this careless and this inconsiderate, because they are fascist. But just so you know, when people say he is MS-13, that is a lie. That's just a lie. He is so not MS-13 that he is directly in the crosshairs of MS-13, at least according to an immigration judge that said, we can't deport this man to El Salvador specifically. There's enough evidence here to suggest that we cannot, because he is so not MS-13, we cannot deport him to El Salvador, because they'll kill him in El Salvador if he goes there. And yet here we are. I want to point to something here. The very fact that we are even covering this story is because the administration, the immigration attorney on the federal side admitted that there was an administrative error, because there was one. There was an administrative error, and they admitted that there was an administrative error, which turned this into a bigger story. There are plenty of people that this administration has actively deported that did no wrongdoing whatsoever. Some of them were temporary protected status holders. Some of them were in the process of seeking out their asylum claims. Some of them had been in the country for longer than they could actually process their asylum claim, so they potentially could not get an asylum claim, but they should get one, that they should get amnesty, right? Under normal circumstances, in a world where we have a normal process for immigration, we would file amnesty, conditional amnesty, to all of these people, 90% of them that have done no wrongdoing whatsoever, and now they're in a torture slave prison for the crime of crossing an imaginary boundary and wanting a better future for themselves and their children. Kidnapped in the street. Some of them so falsely and erroneously kidnapped from the street that ICE itself, in the process of said kidnapping, will recognize that it's not the right person. Manuel Gutierrez, sent from New York to El Salvador prison, although family says he has no criminal history history or gang ties. He's 19 years old. A 19-year-old Venezuelan in New York City reportedly was apprehended by Trump administration immigration authorities and deported to El Salvador, despite agents realizing he was not whom they meant to arrest in a targeted operation. These are called, I believe they're called like collateral, something along, I forget what the term is that ICE uses, but they'll say like it's a collateral arrest. So, you know, wrong place, wrong time, doesn't matter. We can boost our numbers this way.
I guess there's a little bit of a feud in right-wing media right now. The Daily Wire is in deep financial trouble. Candace Owens left them and is having a lot more success on her own.
Brett Cooper's also rebounded very quickly when she started her own independent channel.
It's turns out that some of these like major
Maybe you don't need the Ben Shapiro sauce.
Or other networks, I mean, frankly, even TYT. Like, what is being offered by being employed by these media online kind of conglomerates that they'll maybe take a cut of your YouTube revenue to optimize how your videos are going to come up, as was the case in the past with the Majority Report, but we're kind of past the point where that's really even necessary. And it's not entirely clear that that's effective in the way that it once was, or needed in the way that it once was. There's a big rise in independent media across the board. Like, we're seeing it in sports media too. John Boy or Barstool Sports, they're outliving their usefulness. You can just be an independent creator and not have these middleman companies take out so much of the value in the middle and hoard it at the top. And
own the IP.
And own the IP. That's the other part is that Brett Cooper couldn't hold on to her YouTube channel after she left the Daily Wire because they own it.
Zach Lowe went to The Ringer. He can't call his show the Zach Lowe Show anymore. It's not the Zach Lowe Podcast. All sorts of things. It's always things like that, which is just ridiculous that, capitalists can just own things like that.
Yeah. And so Candace Owens has left. She is a top 5 political podcast in the country, God help us. And she's differentiating herself from her former Daily Wire counterparts by also criticizing Israel's genocide in Gaza from an anti-Semitic angle, oftentimes, which is deeply concerning. But that is part of where she's found her niche. Even the polling bears it out. Young Republicans are against tax dollars going to Israel's genocide in Gaza, not on humanitarian grounds like the left is, but they're against it, and in growing numbers. It's that Pew poll had it around 50% for Republicans 18 to 49 years old who have a negative view of Israel. So with all of that said, I do think that the Daily Wire crew is struggling for relevance. Let's start with Megyn Kelly, who made this post about trad wives that really pissed off Matt Walsh.
What's just happening on the right? Young women, I talk to young conservative women all the time about their lives and their goals and the things that they want. And what's happening is they can't find men who are maybe more conservative. Usually they're looking for somebody who is religious, like a lot of conservative women tend to be God-loving conservatives. And they can't find a lot of young men who want to marry a working woman now. But this is an actual problem that's coming up on the right. And to me, it's so sad because it's like, how do we get to the point where we're now telling young, conservative, amazing women that they're not attractive if they also work. If they choose to, let's say, do what I'm doing and what you're doing and get their voice out there. But I'll stick with me just because I think conservatives listening to this will like the thought of another Megyn Kelly voice up and coming. Well, why wouldn't we want that? Why would we take somebody who's talented in this field and really wants to make a difference and have the messaging to her be, you're really not that valuable unless you give it up and go into the home and only have a family and only raise a family. And not only are we sending her that message, but young men are actually believing that. They're actually believing it, especially on the right. Because the trad mom has gotten so popular, and it's like, no, if we do that, we're not going to have any strong conservative or right-leaning women to provide a role model for younger conservative women who, and there's nothing to apologize for here, don't necessarily want to spend all their 20s and their 30s getting married and having kids, or can't. They just weren't able to meet somebody, and definitely don't need to be shamed over it.
Oh, did you do that? I thought somebody did that to the clip that I pulled.
The men in the audience are like, what the hell are you talking about? Can you stop bringing your woman business into our political commentary? Because, like, you know, we like you again, Megan, now that you kind of came back to Trump land. You were, in 2016, you were bleeding out of your wherever. You were besmirching the good name of Roger Ailes by talking about his systemic sexual harassment in the workplace, including towards yourself, and being a little bit too mouthy, you dumb bitch. So let's get back to the Trump love. That's what we're all here for. And what we also love about Donald Trump is the fact that he enables guys like Andrew Tate and brings them back into the country, that he appoints guys like Pete Hegseth, who has a police report against him, although not proven in a court of law, but that the woman says that she was drugged by him in the police report when she went to the nurse and talked about it, where she said that he blocked the door and took her phone and sexually assaulted her. And there have been other examples of these kinds of accusations being made towards countless people in the Trump orbit. They like that. In fact, it's ideologically consistent with the people that are coming up on the right in the manosphere space. They fit in very neatly together because they are one and the same. Like, I love how she just sometimes peeks her head out from this, because she's smart enough to understand that her side is misogynistic, but like, don't even bother, because this is they're gonna come at you, because if you're gonna be a Republican conservative influencer, Megan, just buy fully in. You're not going to be able to combat this tide, because misogyny is inherent to their political project, especially right now. But those comments made Matt Walsh, theocrat, Christian theocrat on staff, I should say, at the Daily Wire, who doesn't like the idea of this woman pushing back against the idea that men should want women that are in the home.
A man is not looking for a business partner. He's not looking for someone to provide for him. He wants a wife. He wants a mother for his future children. He wants a helpmate. He wants a woman, not a man. This is not a new phenomenon. Megan calls this desire of young men a problem that is coming up on the right. But it's not a problem.
I mean, don't cut back, but I think the helpmate line, we need to circle back to that one, because I think that's kind of revealing.
It's revealing also that what do men
Fold my socks.
What do men want? Does it matter what the woman wants? I don't know.
Read the Bible.
Yeah.
And it's not coming up. Kim Iverson responded in agreement with Megan and said that she, quote, doesn't get this trad wife trend. But what she's calling a trend, or what Megan says is just coming up, is in fact the norm. It's the way human society has been organized since the dawn of civilization. A young man seeking a woman who will have his children and prioritize raising them and keeping a home is doing the same thing that billions of other young men have done since time immemorial. This traditional approach is not some new fad invented by TikTok influencers, nor is it a far-right conspiracy. It is the way of human civilization. These young men, they want what their grandfathers wanted, and what their grandfathers' grandfathers wanted, and what their grandfathers' grandfathers' grandfathers wanted, and on through the ages. The trend, the fad, the new thing, Megan, is feminism.
And I'll just say, like, this is historically absolutely not true. You look at, like, say, the 1800s, the thing wasn't, I just need to find the best helpmates to raise my kids. No, it's which one of these broads has the richest father?
Yeah. What's the dowry situation?
Exactly.
Let's get down to brass tacks here.
Exactly right. And so, I mean, we can go back to it a little more.
You will notice that we're about a minute and 20 seconds in, and he has not mentioned what women want at all.
And for any young men watching, we're going to tell you which of these folks is right after this.
However you feel about career women who find their value and purpose in the working world, there's no question that they are the ones doing something new. Feminism sent women out of the home and into cubicles and boardrooms. Feminism can...
I'll just say, like, my great grandmother was part of people who, you look at like early organizing among like farmers and stuff like that, a lot of that is driven by women. And, you know, there's some sort of household chores issues that maybe men are out in the field, women are more like closer to the telephone, newly invented telephones and that sort of stuff. But the truth is that women's role in all this stuff has always been significant and then subsequently underplayed.
And also, but he's just describing capitalism. He's just describing, why do women have to work now? Do you think that, like...
Oh, right, yeah.
I mean, a lot of families would prefer to have a single income household.
Right.
You know, I think a lot of maybe women would maybe do part-time work or something like that in an ideal, or the man would do part-time work and the woman would work full-time, because childcare is so damn expensive that not having to pay for it is sometimes even more financially sensible for a family than having dual incomes, although that's a rarity these days. It's just kind of necessary. So you have to rely on things like family, friends, neighbors, because we don't have universal childcare in this country. It's a problem of capitalism. Also, because women's labor and labor in the home has never been prioritized by capitalism, even though that kind of labor of child rearing and of household care has been like, it's the bedrock of our society. Without it, it's very difficult for us to kind of create families, like, which is what they say they care about. The problem is capitalism, because two incomes sometimes can't sustain a family, let alone one.
Convinced many women to desire professional success over and above family and children. And now feminists are angry that men were not reprogrammed along with them. Okay? Men don't want what feminism is selling. You may think they should want it. You may want them to want it, but they don't.
White supremacists don't want what anti-racism is selling. You know, although that's more about the extreme end of like white people. But yeah, no, it's a liberation philosophy for women and the dominant gender.
Matt Walsh wants to return to a society where women feel compelled to retreat into the safety of a couple bond because the world is too hostile to them.
Because having financial independence is a threat to small little men like Matt Walsh, who are afraid that a woman will leave them, so they need their economic power to lord over them and use other forms of domination. Not saying Matt Walsh does this, but many of the men he's speaking to likely do, whether it be sexually assaulting their wife, which wasn't a crime a few decades ago, whether it be just controlling her, say, if she's pregnant with twins, 8 months pregnant, and you're still making your wife go grocery shopping for you, and you get caught on a Ring camera disparaging her, and you don't give her a car. You only have one car for some reason, even though you're a multimillionaire conservative influencer. Anyway.
They look out and they see that ever since the rise of feminism, divorce rates have skyrocketed, birth rates have plummeted, 60 million babies are dead, and most people...
I mean, just to do a little bit of, what is it, the correlation does not equal causation thing. We could just go back to making it way harder legally for people to get divorces and make them stay in marriages particularly women stay in marriages with husbands they don't want to be in. Again, barbaric, and Matt Walsh is wrong to do that. And the type of men that listen to this and say, like, yeah, I wish. Guess what, bro? You're never going back to 1950. It's never fucking coming back. Trump can try to move heaven and earth. It's not happening. You need to learn how to adapt to a new situation. And actually, there's a Wall Street Journal piece I want to get to after we finish. I mean, we're probably not going to finish this entire thing for Walsh, but just a little bit more.
Are, by every metric, much more miserable. And they don't want that. You cannot make them want it. And getting angry at them for not wanting it is, first of all, fruitless, second, arrogant, third, unfair, and fourth, foolish. Because these young men that Megan is referring to have an innate desire to be providers.
Innate. All right. So this is the other thing. the naturalization of hierarchy is the number one thing you need to be looking out for if you're analyzing Republican and conservative media. They naturalize inequality and they pretend like it was ordained by God that this is how things exist, as opposed to a series of choices that we make as a society and as a world. It's not natural. There's nothing natural about it. Matt Walsh claims that there's only 2 genders and that's all that's the only thing that's natural, completely ignoring the science on this front, which shows that something from like 1% to 2% of the population is intersex and has intersex traits. That blows a hole in the binary theory. Many times, biological sex is binary, but in those instances, it's not. So it can't be binary. But like, why would it be necessary for him to describe those things as binary? Because it reinforces the hierarchy of men over women, of straight white male patriarchs over LGBTQ people, over women, over black people. You also see them naturalizing racial hierarchies. That is how this works.
Not especially interested in women who put their careers first. They want to provide. The desire to provide is a noble desire. Even if many of these men will end up splitting the financial load with their wives in some way, still the desire to provide is noble, and it should be encouraged, not shamed. It's not sad. There's nothing sad here, Megan. These young men are experiencing a deep, ancient yearning, a yearning to leave.
And can I just say, why they aren't able to go out into the marketplace and provide is not because women said, hey, let's do credit cards and stop raping me. It's because capitalism cannot provide what Matt Walsh says it can. It does not. It cannot provide rising living standards for everyone else. You know what can? Central planning through a government. That's why China is kicking our ass and all this stuff. We can pretend like it's about regulation and not letting the people who pay Matt Walsh's salary, the billionaires, it's just like we're getting in their way. That's a lie, as they strangle what was great about this country and repackage it into fundamentalism that would make fucking Thomas Jefferson blush.
Yeah. And again, notice that all that matters, which backs up exactly what we're saying, all that matters in his analysis is how men feel about feminism, not about how women feel about feminism. Right.
Time to get our heads dirty. Home and find a wife and become one flesh, as the scripture says, and then to have children and carry on their bloodline, and then to go back out into the world on a mission to provide for their family, thereby fulfilling their destiny as men. This desire is primal.
Wait, I'm sorry.
And timeless. It is not a prime.
Where did he get a hold of my wedding vows that I'm writing right now? I mean, isn't this how normal people talk about one another? Hey, husband, I want to become one flesh and body with you.
Yeah.
Is that natural? As long as we're naturalizing things, is it natural to have that level of codependency with a partner? Because I don't know. Maybe in his world, but perhaps not in the sane part of this country.
I mean, this just reminds me of one of my friends got married to a Mormon guy. And she's from a pretty conservative background, probably right, conservative voting. They were scandalized by the vows about submission to the husband that were there. And this is what Matt Walsh thinks is what he's selling to people, because those type of people who do subscribe to this ancient way of thinking, they do like to show up for their folks.
Timeless desire for a colleague or a business partner. It is a desire for a wife, a woman he can provide for and fight for and conquer the world for. And in return, he wants a woman who will have his children and raise and love them and prioritize them above anything.
Okay, all right.
And show him.
He's just saying, I mean, he's just filling time.
So there's this piece in the Wall Street Journal. I believe the article is called, it's an essay, American Women Are Giving Up on Marriage. And I saw it quoted by this guy, Dave, The Evening Glow. and his caption was, "Seems like a lot of young dudes are blowing it." This is just one section. For Alicia Jones, not having anyone else to financially depend on or split rent with is the worst part of being single, especially with the threat of layoffs. It's just much more stressful being a single person. She said her last long-term relationship ended 2 years ago over conflicting views of the shared future. He wanted the white picket fence and me at home with the kids, Jones said. This despite the fact that her salary was nearly 50% higher than his. So that actually should be shamed. You fucked your life up, bro. Because this sort of thing that you're sold by people like Matt Walsh that you need, that is innate. Like, fine, get a job, go work, but don't depend on it for your life's happiness, that you are going to make more than your wife and she's going to be cloistered at home folding laundry or some shit. That is retrograde. You ruined your life with an idea.
It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy of empowerment and of masculinity that our society can't give you right now, unless you're in the 1%. And unless you want the kind of unfulfilling relationship that Matt Walsh is selling to you, because you're not going to find spiritual happiness if you don't have an equal relationship with your partner, where you're friends and confiding in one another and equal in your partnership. You might not always be equal. There may be some times where the other one takes on more and the other one takes on more in 6 months or something like that. But a relationship and a marriage based on subjugation and domination and not fully understanding that person, we saw what that had led to. I mean, the 1950s were not great for women. They're the way that, I mean, just having to take like Quaaludes to get through the day, the level of alcoholism.
But when I ask AI what it looked like back then, all the pictures look so pretty.
I mean, we also would litter on the ground back in the day. None of those old AI photos show all the trash that used to be on the ground in the 1950s.
Just read a little bit more. Jones, who identifies as politically moderate, thinks couples with kids should split household and child care responsibilities equally. She was surprised by just how few men she has encountered in D.C. share this view. Either they held traditional ideas about marriage or were extremely crunchy liberals who wanted to live in a van and drive across the country. So, there you go.
Well, Matt Walsh is saying to all the women in the country,
we need you to be mamala of the country.
Oh, this is actually just reminds me, I have this ready here. It's interesting. Nurturing. This is a good little clip from Some More News here, kind of on the same theme.
Of his day with his kids, he's communicating.
From school, I do not work. I do phone calls, I try to work out. I try to get everything done between the window 7:45 a.m. and 3:30 p.m., which is when they get out from school. Very often, I'm the one who picks them up from school. I do not work from the time I pick them up from school to the time they go to bed, which right now is about 7:30. So that 4-hour period, I'm basically at their disposal.
I'd wager that during those 6 hours of his day with his kids, he's communicating, multitasking, nurturing, civilizing them. Gay women shit. Like, Ben Shapiro's wife is a doctor. He used to brag about her all the time. He's, of course, proud of his doctor wife. He was likely attracted to her partly because of her intelligence and abilities and tolerance of him as a person. I think it's safe to wager that he wouldn't actually agree with his wife being told at a young age, being a doctor is boy stuff. You can and should go be a mom instead.
Cody is brilliant.
Cody's great. Cody's great.
Condoms. Does everybody know what a condom is? Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.
So you might have heard that Ethan Klein
sent what basically amounts to like a stern letter to Noah Samson threatening to sue him. And I would love to go over the whole letter with you, but Ethan Klein made sure to dox me, so I don't want to go over it because he doxed me in it. However, we will talk about it nonetheless. Firstly, though, I want to go over the reason why he's doing this, and he hasn't been talking about this. He's been keeping his fans on the down low about this. It's nothing to do with any of this Israel-Palestine stuff. Absolutely nothing to do with it. There's something that Ethan Klein does not talk about anymore. He used to talk about it a lot, but not anymore. Ethan Klein is set to lose millions upon millions upon millions of dollars in an actual real defamation lawsuit because he kept pushing the buttons of a guy who's way richer than him, a guy who used to be a billionaire. And just a few days ago, he ended up losing the most important part of that defamation lawsuit. It was decided that Ethan Klein had defamed this guy. All that there is left is to establish damages. He lost the anti-SLAPP suit, and then he lost the anti-SLAPP appeal, and he was ordered to pay all of the expenses of the plaintiff. The thing with anti-SLAPP, at least in California, from what I have read, because I read a couple of legal articles on this before streaming about it, once the anti-SLAPP motion is defeated, the defamation part of the lawsuit is established. The trial is now only to establish damages. So it has been ruled essentially that he defamed the guy. And this guy he used to be a billionaire. I'd assume he still has hundreds of millions of dollars. So he's going to get totally fucked here. I don't think there's any settling here. There's no settling at this point. You can't settle at this point, can you? Why would the guy want to settle when he's in the driver's seat? And this is why Ethan Klein is like desperately trying to frame himself as some sort of legal warrior who's in the right all the time now to his audience by like sending frivolous slap legal threats to Noah Samson and stuff, and threatening to sue like 50 people at once, and threatening to sue like Reddit moderators and stuff. And the reason is that he's actually getting fucked in an actual real lawsuit really bad. So the story behind this lawsuit is that years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, Ethan Klein streamed a couple of seconds of a pay-per-view like boxing YouTuber boxing thing with like Jake Paul or whichever the other Paul. I don't know which one is the boxing Paul, one of them. And he ended up getting sued for that by Triller Media, who owned the distribution rights to that pay-per-view event. And for this lawsuit by Triller Media, Ethan Klein, he blamed the CEO of Triller Media, Ryan Kavanaugh, who was at one point a billionaire, is not anymore apparently. Maybe he is, I don't know. He personally blamed the CEO for that copyright claim, and he started like basically dedicating segments of his show to like saying that Ryan Kavanaugh like was guilty of doing a Ponzi scheme or something constantly, and just like he made websites like, does Ryan Kavanaugh look like Harvey Weinstein, and like just like trying to push this guy's buttons on every single show that he did. And just to be clear, I highly doubt that the CEO of this company had anything to do with the legal team trying to sue him personally. Like, obviously he's the CEO, he has something to do with it, but it's not like he's the one who ordered it. Nonetheless, Ethan Klein decided that he was responsible for that, and that he would like say a bunch of shit about this guy. And the story behind the defamation lawsuit, which is the one that he is set to lose, is that there was an article in Variety, the entertainment news outlet Variety, which claimed that Ryan Kavanaugh had like carried out a Ponzi scheme. Variety retracted this article within a week, and then Ethan Klein kept citing that article repeatedly, like literally, if you look at the lawsuit, which we will in a minute, he literally cited that article hundreds of times on his podcast, and Ryan Kavanaugh's lawyers had a fucking field day listing all the times that he cited it after it was already retracted, to try and make it out like this guy had, like the Ponzi scheme allegation was 100% confirmed or whatever. And to be clear, this Ryan Kavanaugh guy doesn't exactly seem like he's a better person than Ethan Klein. Honestly, they deserve each other. But Ethan Klein apparently thought it was a good idea to just do that over and over again. He thought he was just like immune to everything. A couple of days ago, Ethan Klein's anti-SLAPP appeal, he already lost the original anti-SLAPP motion, and he appealed it. And he lost the appeal, which pretty much par for the course, I would say. You know, that seems about like what you would expect. So allow me to show you the glory of the lawsuit that Ethan Klein just lost. Oh, he hasn't lost the whole lawsuit yet, technically, but he is certainly fucked, absolutely certainly fucked. And we're going to get to the Noah Samson lawsuit thread and stuff soon as well. And like, if we go through most of this ruling is dedicated to just listing the times that Ethan Klein said that he did a Ponzi scheme. It just goes on and on and on. All of this in reaction to like a copyright claim. On and on and on. He lost, and it was ruled that he had to pay. Kavanaugh is entitled to his costs on appeal. So he had to pay Kavanaugh's fees for the appeal. And once you lose an anti-slap motion, defamation is essentially proven. Now they just get down to the damages and the rest of the trial. So you have to understand, he is so fucked here. He is actually fucked. He made statements of fact, like this guy did a Ponzi scheme. That's something that you have to prove or disprove. He didn't actually prove it. He literally made the claim here that it was just a meme. Defendant's contention that the audience interpreted defendant's statements as a meme, even if true, is unavailing. And then there's a citation. A meme is an amusing or interesting item. Oh, I love lawsuits. Or genre of items that is spread widely online, especially through social media. But Kavanaugh presented sufficient enough evidence to establish a prima facie case that the challenged statements were assertions of fact, and defendants do not identify sufficient evidence to disprove the challenge statements as are assertions of fact as a matter of law. So this is a cut and dry defamation lawsuit. It was a statement of fact. They were making statements of fact that, at least as far as we know, are unproven. Cut and dry. He's fucked. These two deserve each other. Like people who love to litigate stuff. I'm glad Kavanaugh is finally getting a win in his litigation, which is more than Ethan Klein can ever say about his frivolous litigation. Though this isn't frivolous litigation. So that's the reason why Ethan Klein is so desperate to try and frame himself as some sort of legal warrior to his fans, because he's actually a legal loser. He's set to lose so much fucking money here. Like this guy's gonna take him to the fucking cleaners actually. Now Ethan Klein's legal document against Noah Samson is quite a bit different. I'm not going to show it because it doxes me like 50 times throughout, because it's not actually about Noah Samson. He's just like basically like trying to sue Noah Samson for citing me. That's his plan. Like illegal citations of bad empanada. But like the contentions are, you called Ethan Klein a genocide supporter or like a genocide enabler or whatever it was, something like that. Here's the problem with that. That's a matter of opinion. It's not a statement of fact. It's a matter of opinion, because whether or not you support something isn't like you ran a Ponzi scheme. It's a statement of fact. It's something provable or disprovable. You're a genocide supporter. It's something that you can argue for, but it's not something that's like inherently true or false. Like we know by our standards it's true, but it's more of a subjective claim. In the US, these sorts of claims are very well protected by the First Amendment, so you can't just sue someone on that basis. Like, are you a genocide supporter like on the face of it is a matter of opinion. What is genocide is also a matter of opinion. Is what is happening in Gaza genocide is also a matter of opinion. You can't litigate this shit. It's all the way down. It's things that you cannot possibly litigate. The court is not going to decide whether you are right or wrong in what is ultimately an argument. The court can only decide whether you were defamed when someone says that you like did or said something that you didn't do. Statements of fact. They can't fucking litigate an argument for you. Like, he's so fucking stupid that rather than try to make a response video to argue his case, he's going to court and paying his lawyer to essentially present before a court a YouTube argument for him. By the way, his lawyer, I just want to note, and you'll love this one. Now, you might know that Ethan Klein has said repeatedly that West Bank settlers are fair game. Let me just show you a little clip of that from the content new Hassan Piker.
The West Bank are religious zealots, they're monsters, they're genocidal. I've even said the West Bank settlers are valid military targets. When you talk about like colonial settlers and stuff like that's what's actually happening in the West Bank right now. And these people are more or less valid military targets, in my opinion.
Okay. Now. I want to introduce you now. I'm so excited. I want to introduce you to Ethan Klein's lawyer, Ron Bar-Nissim. Prior to entering law, Bar-Nissim was an English teacher in Israel and the West Bank! I wonder how that discussion goes. Ethan Klein thinks that his lawyer is a valid military target. I wonder how that goes over at lunch. I'm so pro-Palestine that my lawyer is a former West Bank settler, Ron Bar-Nissim. That is the most I change my name to sound more indigenous name you'll ever see. It's giving Maximus Aurelius. I said it's giving. So anyway, apart from the lawyer being very funny, aside from that one thing, genocide, Ethan Klein's lawyer tries to claim that Noah Samson saying things like, Ethan Klein erroneously cited Saudi Arabian propaganda to try and claim that the Houthis were slavers. He tries to claim that is a defamatory statement. Again, that's a statement about like a fucking argument on like the facts regarding news and history and politics and stuff. You can't litigate that. A judge cannot decide whether that statement is true or false or not. It's an argument. You can't litigate that. And I can show you that part because it doesn't mention my name, but basically the entire rest of the video, his lawyer went and did a very obvious chat. He asked ChatGPT to debunk 2 of my videos. The one about Ethan Klein citing Saudi propaganda to claim that the Houthis are slavers, and another one about Ethan Klein lying about supposed equivalent expulsions of the Nakba to try and legitimize the Nakba. So I shit you not, Ethan Klein essentially paid his lawyer to ask ChatGPT to debunk 2 bad empanada videos. He paid his lawyer easily thousands for this because he is like incapable of debunking the videos himself, so he paid a fucking lawyer to try and do so. Obviously, there is no fucking valid legal reason to litigate this shit. You can't litigate an argument over an interpretation of a source. You can't litigate this. What the fuck is this? Check this out, okay? He's like, you attempt to impeach the credibility of the sources relied upon by Ethan. For example, you attack the article entitled Exclusive Houthis Restore Slavery in Yemen from Asharq al-Awsat English version, which by the way is literally a Saudi newspaper owned by the Saudi royal family. The article itself refers to receiving information from, oh my god, I can't believe this, sources close to the group, several local reports, Yemeni activists, a member of the lawyers syndicate in Yemen, and a civilian who works for a pro-Houthi tribal leader in Sada. Other than your blithe assertion that the article contains baseless claims from Saudi state propaganda outlets, you cite no evidence refuting the substance of the article or the sources it relied upon. The sources it relied upon, do you listen to yourself? Sources close to the group, several local reports. It's literally nothing. It's made up. Like I could say, Ram Bar Nassim, according to several local reports, took a big poo-poo in the local river. Several local reports told me, sources close to him told me this. When the article itself does not actually cite fucking anything aside from, dude, trust us, these people who definitely exist who we cannot name nor identify told us this, and it's owned by the fucking Saudi royal family currently doing a fucking genocide against the people that it's talking about, yeah, that's made up. That's fucking made up. Citing a source like that is equivalent to citing fucking nothing. It's the same exact thing. And he's like, why don't you try and disprove the substance of the sources that it relied upon? Like, sources close to the group? Yeah, why don't you try and disprove that? Ethan Klein paid someone thousands of dollars to try and debunk my video and to try and sue Noah Samson for citing my video. And then, I shit you not, he goes on to state that the United States State Department cited that article, and that is his basis. That is his basis for it being apparently evidence of defamation, which it would, by the way, even if this were true, even if this article was 100% true and good, contesting that fact and saying that you don't believe that it was is not defamation. It can't be defamation. It's a fucking matter of interpretation. It's an argument between 2 fucking YouTubers. You can't litigate this. This is so getting thrown out. Like, are you kidding me? This guy is just driving his reputation through the mud, dealing with Ethan Klein. What the fuck is this? And then he goes on to say, further is evidence you not watch the Al Jazeera World documentary Slavery in Yemen. The documentary focused on Yemen's overall culture of slavery and the deposed government's denials of its existence. Yeah, that has nothing to do with the Houthis. Moreover, it's highly misleading to claim it was issued before the Houthi takeover of Yemen, since the Houthis have controlled parts of Yemen as early as March 2011. Further, the Al Jazeera documentary was released on September 10th, 2014, 6 days before the Battle of Sana'a. So he's like trying to claim that somehow this documentary, which he himself acknowledged, is about the previous government, which the Houthis deposed. Somehow proves that the Houthis do slavery, as Ethan Klein claimed. Because of Yemen's overall culture of slavery, even his lawyers are racist shitbags. Unbelievable. Though, to be fair, this was almost certainly not written by him, but imagine presenting this to a court. Like, this is something that even if you were right, you could not litigate. But to be clear, he's just plain fucking wrong. This is fucking absurd. Now, I can't show you a lot of the rest of this because he doxed me in it. I feel like he doxed me in it, like just because he wanted to make it so that I couldn't refute it on my stream, which is basically the sort of thing that Ethan Klein would do. But to give you a taste of what it's like in the rest of it, let me show you just the citations. This is the citations for one page. And you might, if you use or you're familiar with like ChatGPT, what ChatGPT tends to do is it does this ridiculous over-citation thing. We'll write one sentence and throw in like 10 different citations, like Wikipedia articles, like encyclopedia entries, like YouTube videos and stuff, all for like one random sentence that probably wouldn't even need a citation. So this is what the citations look like on like one page. Wikipedia, YouTube video, YouTube video, YouTube video, YouTube video. Holocaust Encyclopedia, United States Holocaust Memorial Museum Encyclopedia, Wikipedia, U.S. State Department. He paid his lawyer to ask ChatGPT to debunk my videos. Ethan Klein, in lieu of being able to respond to people criticizing him himself, something that he insists that Hassan Piker is bad for not doing, even though Hassan has already watched a billion videos that refuted him. So why does it matter who refuted you or not? So did you hear that there were apparently nuclear talks between the Donald Trump American administration and Iran? Which is very weird given that during Trump's previous presidency, he ruined Obama's deal with Iran, attempted deal with Iran to basically what it was to force Iran to stop developing nuclear energy in exchange for things like sanctions relief. Because they're trying to claim that Iran wants to develop a nuclear weapon for the sake of like bombing everyone in the world just for the fun of it. That's basically the idea behind the entire, oh, Iran is developing nuclear fission or whatever the fuck it is hysteria. When the USA obviously has tons of nukes, and Iran having a nuke would be way more warranted than the USA having it, because Iran actually feasibly might want to use it for defensive purposes or deterrence against, you know who? The USA, because Iran is under like real threat of possibly being invaded one day by the USA. The Americans have literally for decades been fucking frothing at the mouth at the prospect of bombing and or invading Iran. So Iran having nuclear weapons would be far more just than the USA having them and Iran not having them. So that's the whole thing with the Iran nuclear deal. So back in 2018, when Trump was still the president, during his first presidency, he abandoned the Iran nuclear deal. And now, paradoxically, Trump suddenly wants an Iran nuclear deal after he torpedoed the original one. Presumably, this would be Iran agreeing to like just dismantle its whole like nuclear energy research program in exchange for sanctions relief, which, to be clear, that is a bad idea, Iran. They're just going to sanction you the second they want to. Like, you have no guarantees here. Don't accept it. Just keep developing the nukes. Or no, the nuclear power. Sorry, Ayatollah. I kind of gave the game away there for a second. So this is like so out of left field. It's completely different to what Trump did in his first term. It makes no sense. Like, he doesn't have a coherent foreign policy anymore. It's all a mishmash of shit that does not make sense together. So the Middle East envoy of Donald Trump's administration, Steve Witkoff, and the Iranian foreign minister met in Oman last week, and apparently they are meeting again, this time for like more serious, in like a more serious way rather. So this makes no sense. I think Trump is a Russian agent. I think basically Putin is getting Trump to do everything that he thinks would be beneficial for Russia, and part of that is taking the pressure off Iran, which is a potential or an actual Russian ally, especially in the middle. Like, Iran is a huge prize as a regional power player, like on the level of Saudi Arabia almost. So taking pressure off them, and like Russia trying to bring them onto more of an alliance on equal terms with themselves would be extremely beneficial for Russian foreign policy. Like, I don't know how else to fucking explain this shit. The only thing that Trump is doing overall is the Gaza genocide, which they were doing anyway. And Russia isn't anti-Israel. Russia is not pro-Palestine at all. So it makes sense that they wouldn't really care about that, especially because, they'd be kind of, if Vladimir Putin forced Agent Donald Trump to suddenly declare that Palestine was one state and Israel is an illegitimate state, that would be very suspicious. Too suspicious. He'd be giving the game away. Like, everything else is precisely what I would do if I wanted to destroy American power from within. I would destroy the so-called soft power apparatus, destroy the propaganda apparatus. I would threaten all of my neighbors. I would tariff everyone. I would destroy all of the historical alliances that I have used to maintain my global imperial influence and power. I would also implement like incredibly self-destructive American policies that will ruin the lives of my fat American labor aristocrats who benefit from imperialism. Donald Trump does it all. So the Iran deal maybe isn't that surprising given everything else. But I mean, I still wouldn't trust them, obviously. You're going to trust like the US government, let alone Donald Trump, to act rationally and like uphold their end of a deal? Because once you get rid of the nuclear program, them re-implementing sanctions on you is way easier than it is for you to get your nuclear program back to the point where it was before you dismantled it. So it's a very lopsided deal, and you have no real recourse if they just decide to re-sanction you, aside from beginning the nuclear program again. But they lost nothing, and you lost quite a lot of your progress from dismantling all your nuclear infrastructure and like your science teams and shit. So I don't know. Do not agree on a nuclear deal with the USA. There would need to be something more, like some sort of real guarantee, and I'm at a loss as to what that could be. So personally, I think Iran should say fuck off. Don't trust the US government ever. Like the only tangible threat that Iran would have is if you break the deal, we bomb Israel. And Iran wouldn't do that because Iran are a bunch of cucked cowards who don't really care about Palestinians, aside from how they can be utilized for their own geopolitical interests. So like if they did bomb Israel in retaliation, it'd be like 2 missiles fired into an empty field after they call the IDF in advance to make sure that no one's in the field, just to make it look like they're doing something. So yeah, they shouldn't do anything here. Just don't do anything. No deal. Deal or no deal? No deal. The art of a deal? No deal. That's what I say to Iran. No nuclear deal. Keep developing nukes. And when you have them, well, finally you have some leverage to get real deals out of these motherfuckers. So get the nukes. Get the nukes. Get the nukes. I want a nuclear-armed Iran tomorrow. Please, thank you.
Trump did an ad for Tesla. As Tesla stocks have plummeted, Donald Trump desperately has been trying to endorse Tesla and use his like name recognition to increase the value of Tesla stock. The ad kind of worked. I think the Tesla stocks recovered, not completely. It went up like 5%.
Stephen Miller went on Fox News to lie repeatedly about the Supreme Court ruling about Kilmer Abrego Garcia, and he's pressed here by the Fox News reporter whose name is Bill. Is this Bill Hemmer?
Hemmer, yeah.
Bill Hemmer.
Bill Hammered. Sorry.
Although we'll hold off on hammering Bill Hemmer here because he's.
He'll do that himself afterward.
Oh, that's what you do at Fox News, folks. Here he is pushing Stephen Miller on this. This is in the wake of the press conference that we played earlier with Bukele, where they basically sneer at the rest of the press and say that they're not returning Kilmer Abrego Garcia back home, even though in court the administration has admitted repeatedly that it was a mistake, whether it's Trump's own Solicitor General, ICE agents in official court documents. That's what they're saying when there's something on the line to judges and when their facts can be, their claims can be verified as factual or not. But when it's to the press, it's lie, it's lie, it's lie, it's lie, and it's lie again.
Here's the argument on topic number one. DOJ said a federal court cannot compel the executive branch to engage in any mandated act of diplomacy or incursion upon the sovereignty of another nation. So your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case. Clearly, 9-0. A district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping. That we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So we appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this is
Okay,
trade
all right, let me pause it here for a second. Again, they did not win this case. They did not win this case. The Supreme Court said, yeah, just because it was a 9-0 decision, it was 9-0 against you. They didn't use the strong language that they probably should have, but they backed up the ruling from the lower court that said that they basically had to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia, which they're denying now. But
Which now the administration that says, yeah, we'll just take Greenland because we need it, is saying, El Salvador is a sovereign land, and we actually don't even have communication where we could line something like this up. It's a fascist lie by Stephen Miller is a white nationalist.
right, and when he talks about Article 2 of the United States Constitution, which allows for the President of the United States to conduct foreign policy by consenting with the Senate. Now, the Bush administration built off of this to do a bunch of illegal actions under the guise of the war on terror. And now the Trump administration is bringing that back home by claiming that when something that is clearly domestic policy, which is a response to a U.S. court ruling, is somehow foreign policy. No, that is a United States court directive. That is what they have told you to do. This is not under the guise of foreign policy. The only reason that's being used is because this man was among hundreds of others, an overwhelming majority of whom were not criminals and had no criminal record, were sent to a foreign prison, which is what you did. But it first began on U.S. soil, where they were also avoiding U.S. judge decrees and saying, well, what can we do? All of these people are already in the air. So the foreign policy assertion is so laughable on its face, but it's just meant to remove the president from any accountability. But go back like 10, 15 seconds.
Court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention, and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we won the case handily. The misreporting on this has been atrocious.
Okay,
Secondly,
I appreciate
he was
the
not, no, Bill, it's
clarification
important.
that's the case.
He was not mistakenly sent to El Salvador.
Okay, so do you still
He's
believe
an illegal
he is a
alien
member of
from
MS?
El Salvador.
I'm sorry, let's bring this back up. Let's bring it back up from earlier in the day. What did they say in court documents? We have this for you, right in front of you. I think this is 4 on the sound sheet from earlier. Here it is. John Sauer, Solicitor General under Donald Trump. The United States concedes that that removal to El Salvador was an administrative error. Next slide. ICE official Robert Serna. Through administrative error, Abrego Garcia was removed from the United States to El Salvador. The Department of Justice lawyer, we concede that he should not have been removed to El Salvador. But Stephen Miller says something differently in front of the cameras, you know, this sniveling Nazi.
Important. In 2019, he was ordered deported. He has a final removal order from the United States. These are things that no one disputes. Where is he from? El
Okay,
Salvador.
I'm sorry. We just really quickly. He was not ordered deported. He was not ordered deported. He is lying again there. He was picked up by ICE because he was looking for work at a Home Depot as a day laborer. Then he was, I think that was in 2019. A police informant had told the police that he was an MS-13 member. There were ties to New York when Abrego Garcia hadn't even been to New York. And so that evidence came out, but initially the immigration judge denied his bond because of that accusation. That's what happened. Not that he was ordered to be deported, but that his bond was denied because of that informant falsely saying that he was a member of MS-13 when there wasn't evidence to back it up. And then there was an immigration protection that was put in place called withholding of removal, which required the Department of Homeland Security to just hold off on deporting him to basically decide whether or not he was a danger to the security of the United States. And that was still in process. And one of the things that the judge said at the time was that he can't be sent back to El Salvador because he's at risk there, because he was an asylum claim, because he came to this country fleeing violence from that country. And what was the place that they sent him to? Specifically violating what this judge said, El Salvador.
Where is he a resident and citizen of? El Salvador. Is he here illegally? Yes. Does he have a deportation order? Yes. A DOJ lawyer who has since been relieved of duty, a saboteur, a Democrat, put into a filing incorrectly that this was a mistaken removal. It was not. This was the right person sent to the right place. Now, some have said, well, but he had a thing called a withholding order. So a withholding order means you've been ordered deported, but an immigration judge is saying you cannot go back to a particular country. Here's the thing. If you are a member of a foreign terrorist organization, you cannot have a withholding order. Since he's in MS-13, there is no withholding order. Furthermore, the gang that he is accused of being persecuted by doesn't exist anymore in El Salvador. The 18th Street gang is gone. So you have an illegal alien from El Salvador. Bill, where are we supposed to send the illegal alien from El Salvador?
You haven't even allowed me to ask you a question. Are you convinced he is still a member of MS-13? That was your original charge.
Yes. But here's the thing, Bill. Yes, but here, not only am I convinced of it, not only is El Salvador convinced of it, Bill, he's an illegal alien from El Salvador with the deportation order. So his only options in life, Bill, his only options in life are to be deported to El Salvador or to be deported to some other country. That's it. He has a deportation order. So, Bill, you tell me, what country should we deport him to? Tell me, please. Tell me.
So Marco Rubio on Sunday morning said this.
Yeah.
Why have that Nazi on your air if you have to beg to get a fucking word in? I'm sorry. I don't think that was that good by Bill Hemmer.
You don't think so?
I mean, it's nice to push it somewhat, but he literally said, like, okay, I'm going to give you the answer you want. It's going to be a lie. Yes, I still think he is Tren de Aragua. Obviously, Bill Hemmer knows he doesn't believe that.
Or you mean MS-13, yeah.
MS-13, yeah,
right.
Right. Obviously, Bill Hemmer knows he's just lying about that. He doesn't give a shit about the words coming out of his mouth and into the multi-million-dollar media apparatus that Bill Hemmer is at the helm of. I mean, it's not Hemmer's fault. This is what happens when somebody gets exposed as a white nationalist, and we just accept them as part of the government.
Yeah, no, I guess my expectations are more just on the floor with Fox News, and because a guy like Stephen Miller isn't going on other networks, right? So where is the opportunity to question the guy who's basically we moved from Elon Musk being the CEO president, but then being a bit of a political liability for Donald Trump, so he's in the shadows now, to the next guy up who's going to do all the work for him, which is Stephen Miller on this immigration piece.
Who was the last guy in the last administration? I mean, is there a longer serving advisor to Trump than Stephen Miller, the white nationalist?
And you see how he was positioned at that Bukele meeting. I mean, you know, and in those texts, exactly right, that were leaked by adding Jeffrey Goldberg to that group chat on foreign policy. Stephen Miller was acting as the voice of Donald Trump there, which is very much flush with the actions that we're seeing right now.
I mean, he's a true inspiration to like kids that shot up Columbine.